Millionaire CEO was rushing to a crucial meeting when he found a poor girl sobbing uncontrollably in the back seat of his locked car. What he did next left the entire city speechless. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel and let's get started. A cold wind cut across the busy city streets as Jessica, only 23 years old and utterly worn down by life, hurried through the glow of neon signs in the upscale district. In one hand, she clutched her outdated resume, now crumpled and damp from the slight drizzle. In the other, she held the last of her loose change, barely enough for a cup of cheap coffee. It was well past office hours, and the tall corporate buildings around her were darkening, their windows reflecting her own anxious face. Hours earlier, Jessica had faced yet another blow. The final interview for what she thought was her dream job had ended abruptly when she was informed, with polite regrets, that she simply wasn't the right fit. No matter how many times the receptionist smiled sympathetically or how kindly the HR manager shook her hand, the sting of rejection felt as sharp as a dagger. She had no safety net, no wealthy parents, no comfortable savings. Her landlord's warnings about overdue rent still echoed in her mind, and the dread of an empty fridge at home gnawed at her. But how did it come to this? Only a year ago, Jessica had stable work at a small design studio. Sure, her salary was modest, but she was surrounded by bright colors, creative minds, and the hum of possibility. Then came the layoffs. First a dip in sales, then a wave of economic uncertainty. Before she knew it, the doors closed for good, and so did her only reliable source of income. Since then, she had tried everything. Waiting tables for meager tips, babysitting a neighbor's fussy toddler, even assisting in local events, but nothing solid had materialized. Tonight, the city's shimmering high-rises felt hostile. Their polished facades reminded her of a life forever out of reach. She tried not to glance into the tinted windows of the fancy cars whisking important people to exclusive restaurants. Each shining headlight made her cringe a little more, as if mocking her for even daring to dream. Finally, with her shoes soaked and her spirit nearly broken, she decided to cut through a deserted parking lot, an area where the rich and influential left their glimmering vehicles in neat rows, guarded by tall fences and private security after hours. At first, Jessica had no intention of approaching the line of luxury cars. Her only goal was to find a quicker path toward the last open bus stop before the route ended. But she noticed a single sports car near the exit, engine off, windows tinted black, almost defiant in its quiet grandeur. Her reflection on the passenger window made her pause. She looked so exhausted, so small, so unlike the wide-eyed girl she once was. Something in the pit of her stomach twisted, an ache that demanded release. Her breath caught in her throat, and tears, those tears she'd fought so hard to contain in front of potential employers, finally began to fall. The realization that she had nowhere to go, no immediate hope for a stable future, and hardly anyone to ask for help, overwhelmed her. And before she fully understood what she was doing, Jessica found the handle unlocked. A fleeting thought told her this was a terrible idea, trespassing in a stranger's car. But her emotional dam had already burst. She felt drawn to the quiet interior as though it were the last safe haven in a merciless world. Why that car? Maybe because the plush seat with its soft leather promised a momentary refuge, or perhaps because she was half convinced she was dreaming and that none of this was real. Heart-pounding, she slipped onto the driver's seat, quickly shifting to the passenger side in a hazy confusion. Instantly, the scent of expensive cologne and brand-new leather enveloped her senses. A warm wave of comfort, temporary and misguided, she knew, washed over her. Jessica pressed herself against the passenger door, hugging her knees, letting tears streak down her cheeks in thick lines. That day's rejections, the crippling rent notices, the memory of frantically searching for coins to afford a bus ticket, all those humiliations were now bursting out in gasps and sobs she could no longer contain. She whispered apologies to the absent owner of the car, acknowledging she had no right to be there but also too desperate to move. Little did she know that the vehicle's owner was only a few steps away, finishing up a late-night call in a quiet corner of the parking lot. Adam Carter, a 35-year-old self-made millionaire and CEO of Carter Innovations, was pacing back and forth near the locked gate. Known across the corporate world for his cold efficiency and unyielding demeanor, he was the type who rarely offered second chances. In the city's rumor mill, his name circulated with stories of unflinching layoffs and strictly professional relationships. He valued performance over pleasantries and results over sweet talk. He disliked inefficiency, incompetence, and, most of all, unexpected complications. His phone conversation ended brusquely. "Close the deal or I'll find someone else who can. Don't waste my time." He hated dragging out negotiations. After a final, clipped goodbye, he stepped toward his prized sports car, an opulent statement of success he rarely flaunted, preferring function over ostentation. That night, though, he had driven it to clear his head after a rough day of boardroom showdowns. To his surprise, his headlights, activated by the remote, revealed a figure in the passenger seat. Adam froze in confusion. His heart thudded. Could it be a thief, a paparazzo, some unscrupulous competitor trying to plant a spy device? This was the last thing he needed. Storming forward, anger flashed on his face, fully expecting to confront a brazen trespasser. He flung open the door and discovered a trembling young woman drenched in tears, her entire body shaking with quiet sobs. In that split second, Adam was caught off guard. Instead of anger, a jolt of unexpected compassion coursed through him. Jessica, startled, gazed up with red-rimmed eyes, fear coiling in her chest. She scrambled to get out an apology, but it came out in broken, half-choked words. She only managed to repeat, "I'm sorry," over and over, tears still spilling down her cheeks. Adam observed her worn-out clothes, her trembling hands, the raw heartbreak etched on her face. She looked nothing like the typical polished socialites he brushed off at formal events, nor the cunning hustlers he confronted in the corporate ring. She looked lost, utterly lost. Adam's first instinct was to bark at her to leave, but something in Jessica's desperate eyes reminded him of a distant time, memories of his own humble beginnings that he tried so hard to bury. A swirl of empathy flickered within him, conflicting with his usual stance of stern practicality. Slowly, he took a breath, scanning the deserted parking lot, and then allowed a moment of calm. "Who are you?" he managed quietly, his cold voice softened by genuine confusion. Jessica swallowed hard, tears rolling down her cheeks as she clutched her crumpled papers. She tried to explain how she'd lost her job, how her last interview had failed, how she didn't even have bus fare to get home. Words poured out in a trembling rush, half coherence, half heartbreak. She was more honest than cautious, as if her spirit had no energy left for pride or lies. Adam listened, stunned at his own patience. Something in him wanted to push her away, to call security, to dash off with the air of untouchable importance. But those tearful confessions dragged at the hidden corners of his conscience. He recognized this, the quiet panic of having no backup plan. He'd been there, long ago, surviving on packaged noodles and sleeping on a battered couch. Yes, success had hardened him, but not to the point of complete forgetfulness. For Jessica, time stood still. Perhaps in the morning he would turn her over to the police. Perhaps he would laugh at her story. But in the moment, through the lens of tear-blurred eyes, Adam's expression had shifted from fury to a kind of measured curiosity, almost concern. A moment later, he handed her a crisp, clean handkerchief, the type embroidered with an inconspicuous luxury brand's initials. His voice was still cool, but he didn't raise it. "Stop crying," he said gently, "and then let's figure out what you're doing in my car." "Would you like me to continue with section 210, O1 Pro? Você disse yes. O ChatGPT disse solicitação de O1 Pro Mode. Terminou de refletir do your des. Adam Carter's voice hung in the still air of the parking lot, and Jessica's gaze flickered uncertainly. She was clutching the soft handkerchief he'd given her, dabbing at her cheeks. Something about his tone, firm yet unexpectedly gentle, kept her rooted in place. He motioned for her to step out of the sports car so he could close the door. She obeyed instantly, adrenaline pounding in her veins. The thought of running crossed her mind, but she couldn't summon the will. She was tired, and there was nowhere to go. Besides, her eyes kept gravitating to Adam's steady expression. In the soft wash of the overhead street lamp, she saw no mockery there, just curiosity and a subtle impatience. He took a silent measure of her appearance, damp hair plastered to her forehead, wrinkled business-casual clothes, scuffed shoes. Jessica offered a small, apologetic shrug. "I'm sorry," she repeated, stifling the urge to sob again. I promise I didn't mean any harm. I know it was stupid to—" Adam raised a hand to stop her. "Let's talk more in the car," he said, glancing around at the drizzle that showed no sign of letting up. The parking lot was too exposed. There were security cameras in every corner, and the last thing he wanted was to appear in some viral snippet of footage, grappling with a distressed stranger next to his brand-new vehicle. Jessica hesitated but followed him back into the driver's seat. This time, she climbed into the passenger side properly, quietly clutching her outdated resume. Her heart hammered as Adam shifted into the driver's seat and pressed the ignition button. The engine purred to life with a muted roar, an immediate reminder of the gulf between them. Jessica sank deeper into the leather upholstery, feeling out of place. "Name?" Adam asked, in a tone reminiscent of an HR interview. She swallowed. "Jessica Flores." Silence settled for a moment, broken only by the faint hum of air conditioning. Adam drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. Without taking his eyes off the road, he spoke. "Jessica Flores, I'd like to think you have a better explanation than wanting to steal my car." "No!" she exclaimed, eyes widening. "I swear I wasn't trying to steal anything, I was just—" She paused, cheeks burning with shame. The reality of how it looked, a woman sneaking into an unlocked luxury car, was humiliating. "I was just exhausted. I had nowhere else to go. I felt desperate. I thought I might sit there for a moment." Adam nodded slightly as though deciding whether to believe her. "And you ended up crying your eyes out?" Jessica's lip trembled, and she looked down at her resume. "I lost my job last year. Then I got evicted from my apartment. I've been trying every day to find a new position, anything really. But it's not going well. Today was my last interview. If that had worked out, maybe I'd have enough for rent, but—" Her voice trailed off. She inhaled, eyes glistening with tears that threatened to return. "I'm sorry," she repeated quietly, as though that word was all she had left. Adam let out a thoughtful exhale. In his mind, a swirl of doubts and fleeting sympathy coexisted. He'd seen people lie and manipulate for personal gain more times than he cared to count. Yet he also recognized the ring of genuine desperation in her voice. "All right," he said at last, turning the car's headlights on. "You can't be wandering around here in the middle of the night. Where do you live?" Jessica flushed. I was staying on someone's couch, but they asked me to leave this morning. So I was hoping, maybe if I got the job, I'd be able to afford something smaller, a cheap hostel maybe." As she talked, her voice cracked with a blend of pride and embarrassment. Adam stared at the sleek digital clock on the dashboard. It was approaching midnight. Already his business mind was berating him. "This is not your problem. Let it go. You have a board meeting tomorrow. You don't have time for a sob story." And yet, he hesitated. He reached into the interior console and pulled out his personal phone. A quick series of messages flashed across the screen. A canceled dinner appointment, leftover messages from his financial manager, a text from a longtime associate. Adam's life was a puzzle of efficiency. Rarely did he spare time for anything outside career demands. but something compelled him to put the phone aside. "Jessica," he said calmly, "if everything you've told me is real, then you're in a tough spot." He tapped the steering wheel lightly as if thinking. "But you can't sleep in this parking lot, and if you stay here, security will definitely call the cops on you." Jessica braced herself for what came next, an order to leave, or a scolding for trespassing, maybe a curt suggestion to contact homeless shelters. But Adam's words, though blunt, carried a subdued concern. "I'll drive you somewhere safe." Her eyes flickered with hope and confusion. "Safe? Do you have any friend you could spend the night with?" Adam probed, suspecting the answer. Jessica shook her head reluctantly. He cursed under his breath, something about how this was going to complicate his schedule. Then he shifted into gear. Jessica clung to her bag uncertainly as the car sped through the nearly empty streets. This late, the city was quiet, save for the glow of towering office buildings and the glare of advertisements still cycling through LED screens. Adam said very little, leaning forward slightly, scanning the roads. Jessica didn't press him, though 1,000 questions swirled in her mind. Where are we going? Why is he doing this? She sensed that pushing too hard might scare off the fragile kindness he was offering. Eventually, the car pulled up to a modern apartment building with a chrome and glass facade. Jessica's jaw nearly dropped at the sight. They entered a private parking area where Adam's name was on a reserved plate. Everything about this place screamed polished luxury, from the glossy marble lobby to the discreet uniformed guard who opened the door. Stepping out, Jessica was too numb to protest. The guard recognized Adam instantly, greeted him with a small nod, and then glanced curiously at Jessica. She lowered her gaze, feeling every bit the pauper in her worn clothes, undone hair, and anxious posture. Inside, the hallway was silent, lined with soft lighting that illuminated abstract paintings. Adam paused before the elevator, turning to Jessica. "I have a guest unit upstairs, mostly for out-of-town colleagues. It's not huge, but it's private. You can stay there for the night." She stared at him in disbelief. "You're letting me stay in your place?" The notion was absurd. The man who owned that extravagant sports car and a penthouse suite in this high-end building was offering her, a complete stranger, a roof for the night. He shrugged, mask of indifference slipping back into place. "You said you have nowhere else." Jessica's mind spun with scenarios. What if this was a trap? But something about Adam's demeanor suggested otherwise. He seemed more inconvenienced than predatory. If anything, he was extending a last-minute lifeline as though it were a business transaction. No emotion, just pragmatic goodwill. The elevator doors whispered open and they stepped into a lavish corridor. Every step Jessica took felt surreal. Adam led her to a door separate from his main apartment. Inside was a tidy suite with minimalist decor. White walls, sleek furniture, a small kitchenette. It was barely furnished compared to the typical penthouse image, but it was a dream compared to her usual nights on random couches. Adam switched on a lamp, the warm glow chasing away the sterile darkness. There should be some basic groceries in the fridge. Clean towels in that closet. If you need anything, call the front desk. They'll ring me. He gave a short, businesslike nod, as though concluding a deal. Get some rest. Jessica took a few tentative steps into the room, her heart pounding in gratitude and confusion. When she turned to thank him, she realized Adam was halfway out the door, slipping into the hallway with a nod that said he had a million other places to be. But before he left, he hesitated. "Tomorrow," he added in that cool, measured tone. "I'll see if I can connect you with someone who's hiring. I can't promise anything, but I might know a few people." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of relief. She managed to whisper, "Thank you, Adam." He didn't respond, just closed the door gently behind him. Jessica exhaled in the hush that followed, pressing her palm to her chest. The sudden quiet felt overwhelming. She stared around the neatly made bed, the small table, the fresh towels. This night had turned her life upside down. Hours ago, she was on the street, hopeless. Now she was in a corporate titan's private guest suite with a faint promise of potential help waiting in the morning. What just happened? It was all too much for her weary mind to process. So Jessica did what she could, set down her tattered resume on the table, removed her wet shoes, and sank onto the bed. She fully intended to stay awake, anticipating the next blow of misfortune, but her eyelids betrayed her. Within moments, her exhaustion claimed her. She drifted into the deepest sleep she'd had in months, uncertain of what tomorrow might bring, yet clinging to a fragile hope she hadn't felt in a very long time. Would you like me to continue with Section 3 Part 10? O1 Pro. Você disse yes, tudo. O chat GPT disse solicitação de O1 Pro Mode. Terminou de refletir 310. Jessica awoke to the faint hum of traffic far below and the comforting hush of central air circulating through the guest suite. For a few disorienting moments, she forgot where she was. The bed felt too soft. The sheets smelled too clean. Then, piece by piece, it all came back. The desperation in the parking lot, the tearful confession inside a millionaire's car, and Adam Carter's unexpected act of kindness. She glanced around. Morning light spilled through half-drawn curtains, illuminating the minimalist decor, a contrast to the cluttered, cramped rooms she was used to. The single piece of artwork on the wall caught her eye. A simple, abstract painting with thick swaths of gray and white. Strange that in a place so luxurious, this guest space should feel almost spare. "I slept here," she murmured in disbelief, lifting a hand to brush away any lingering sense that this was just a dream. Her body still felt exhausted, but there was a trace of renewed energy she hadn't experienced in months. For once, she hadn't woken up on someone's couch or in a drafty hostel bunk. She'd slept in a real bed with fresh linens. Through the thin walls, Jessica could hear distant sounds, footsteps in the corridor, perhaps housekeeping. Uncertainty knotted in her stomach. She wasn't sure what was expected of her now. The memory of Adam Carter's rigid composure made her anxious. Would he regret bringing her here? Had he changed his mind overnight? A flush of embarrassment reminded her that she was entirely at his mercy. She found a neatly folded robe in the closet and pulled it on. Her own clothes were wrinkled from the previous day's stress, but at least they were dry. Tiptoeing into the small kitchenette, she checked the fridge. A half-gallon of milk, bottled water, some eggs, a bit of fruit. It was modest, but more than enough for a light breakfast. She hesitated. Was it okay to use these groceries? He had said it was stocked for out-of-town guests, but she worried about overstepping. Eventually, she settled for a cup of water and an apple. She took careful bites as she tried to plan her next move. After all, Adam had mentioned trying to connect her with a job. Though a hopeful flicker lit her chest at the thought, she tried not to let her imagination run too wild. Wealthy or not, people changed their minds. He might be too busy. He might realize she was nothing but trouble. Still, Jessica had her resume. She decided to look it over once more, perhaps update it if there was a computer she could borrow. What if Adam introduced her to someone important? She'd have to be prepared. The idea of being unprepared, again, felt terrifying. A timid knock on the door nearly made her jump. She set her half-eaten apple aside and hurried to open it. A middle-aged woman in a uniform stood there, holding fresh towels and toiletries. "Hello, miss," the woman greeted warmly, stepping inside with cautious politeness. "Mr. Carter asked me to bring these for you, and also to inform you that he'll be free around 10 o'clock if you want to speak with him. He's in his main apartment upstairs right now." Jessica exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "Thank you." She accepted the items, her cheeks warming at the knowledge that Adam had remembered her at all. For a man rumored to be cold-hearted, he was certainly showing more consideration than she'd ever expected. The employee gave a friendly nod. "If you need anything else, please dial number 1 on the room phone. That's Mr. Carter's direct line. Or call the front desk. My name is Elaine, by the way. I help with housekeeping and errands around here." Elaine exited, leaving Jessica alone again with her thoughts. Gently setting the towels in the bathroom, Jessica caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Shadows under her eyes hinted at her struggles. Her hair, though no longer dripping with last night's rain, was in dire need of a brush. She splashed water on her face and decided a quick shower might help her feel more presentable. Moments later, under a warm spray of water, she finally released the tension coiled in her shoulders. She let herself imagine, briefly, that life might change for the better. The meltdown in Adam's car had been humiliating, but maybe it was fate's twisted way of giving her a new start. After drying off and dressing in her now freshened clothes as best she could, she carefully folded the robe and left it on a chair. She felt almost human again. Another wave of uncertainty hit her as she remembered Elaine's message. Adam would be free at 10. Should she go find him? Or wait for him to summon her? She glanced at the digital clock on the bedside table. 9:48 a.m. Tucking her resume under one arm, she stepped into the hallway. It was quiet. The plush carpeting muffled her footsteps as she made her way to the elevator. But once inside, she had to guess which floor corresponded to his main apartment. She recalled hearing the guard mention a penthouse. Pressing the top button, she waited nervously. The elevator opened onto a sunlit foyer with a wall of glass that offered a panoramic city view. Jessica's breath caught. She couldn't help but step closer to the floor-to-ceiling windows, marveling at the vast skyline. Far below, cars and people crawled like ants. To her left was an imposing double door in dark wood, presumably leading to Adam's personal living space. She almost turned back. This was out of her league, like stumbling into the pages of a luxury magazine. But she remembered the time, 10 o'clock. Summoning her courage, she approached the door. Before she could knock, it swung open. Adam stood there, phone in hand, posture as crisp as the suit he wore. Tailored, undoubtedly expensive. He lifted his gaze, eyes meeting hers with that same reserved clarity. "You're early," he said, checking his watch. "By about 5 minutes." Jessica swallowed, feeling strangely guilty. "Sorry, "No, it's fine," he interjected, stepping aside to let her enter. The interior made the guest suite look Spartan by comparison. The penthouse was expansive, with sleek lines, modern furniture, and carefully chosen art. Floor-to-ceiling windows curved around two sides of the living area, allowing the morning sun to flood in. It was both breathtaking and intimidating. "I hope I'm not bothering you," she ventured, noticing a half-finished coffee mug on the marble kitchen counter and a laptop open to what looked like a financial spreadsheet. "I have some time blocked off before my next meeting," Adam replied. "Sit." He motioned to a minimalist couch. Jessica obliged, carefully placing her resume on her lap. "So, you slept well?" Adam asked, more as a formality than genuine small talk. She nodded. "Yes, thank you again. I didn't really know how to thank you properly for trusting me, letting me stay the night." He lowered himself into a chair opposite her. "It wasn't about trust. You were clearly desperate, and I didn't want you roaming the streets." His tone was matter-of-fact. "But let's talk about you moving forward. You said you lost your job a year ago. Design, was it?" Her eyes widened a bit, surprised he remembered. "Yes, a design studio. Mostly small projects for local businesses, but then it shut down. I've applied for anything remotely close to my skill set since. Graphic design, concept sketches, layout editing, even secretarial work, just to pay bills." Adam nodded, expression hard to read. "I might know a few people. Carter Innovations has multiple partnerships, and not just in tech. Some of our associates deal with branding, advertising, and design. No guarantees, but I can reach out." Jessica's heart fluttered. Could it really be this easy? She'd scrambled for jobs for months, and a single phone call from Adam might open doors she'd never access otherwise, but she couldn't let herself hope too much. "That would mean the world to me," she said softly, glancing at him with genuine gratitude. "I can show you some of my work if—" He held up a hand. "We'll get to that. First, you'll need to tidy up your resume, maybe refine your portfolio. My contacts will want more specifics. We also need to figure out a living situation for you. Last night was a one-off. I'm not in the habit of letting strangers crash indefinitely." Shame crept into her cheeks. "I understand," she said, voice subdued. She clutched her resume a little tighter, as if it anchored her. Maybe even a cheap hostel if I could get some money in advance. Let's not jump to that." Adam stood, pacing toward the window. Jessica watched his reflection in the glass. He looked pensive, weighing options. "If you're going to interview with my connections, it wouldn't hurt for you to have a stable address and a decent phone number they can reach you at." She almost laughed, thinking of her battered cell phone that sometimes froze and other times failed to connect to the cheapest plan. "I do have a phone," she mumbled, "but it's not reliable." Adam turned around. "I'll have my assistant set you up with something short-term. A small apartment, perhaps. A phone plan that actually works, and you can pay me back once you have income." Jessica blinked. This man was essentially offering to bankroll her new start. It was more than kindness. It was downright surreal. I don't know how to thank you," she said, feeling tears threaten. But Adam's stare warned her to keep emotions in check. "Don't thank me yet," he said, cool and cautious. "I'm doing this because I hate half measures. If I decide to help, I go all in. That includes ensuring you're actually serious, no messing around, no personal drama. I have zero tolerance for those things." His words, though stern, had a powerful ring of sincerity. Jessica inhaled slowly, letting them sink in. "I promise," she said, voice trembling only slightly. "I'll work hard, do whatever it takes. I won't waste your time." Adam studied her face for a long moment. "I have a meeting soon, and after that I'll be out of the office for half the day, so I'll have my assistant, Callie, handle most details. Help find you a temporary place, maybe gather references for job leads. You can head down to my personal workspace in the building's second-floor office wing. Callie will meet you there in an hour." With that, the conversation seemed settled in his mind. Jessica couldn't help the wave of gratitude that swept over her. She mustered her courage to say, "Thank you, Mr. Carter. It means everything." He offered the faintest hint of a smile, less warmth than politeness, but it was there. Then he glanced at his watch. "If you're hungry, feel free to have something from the kitchen before you go. You'll find it through that hallway. Just make sure you're at the second-floor office punctually." Jessica rose from the couch, unsure whether to offer a handshake or just slip away quietly. Adam was already refocusing on his laptop, scanning messages. She decided to leave him to his routine, heart racing with the knowledge that her life was pivoting in a direction she'd never imagined. In the hallway, she paused for a moment, reliving the exchange. His help was generous, almost unbelievably so, yet she sensed a guardedness underneath, like he'd built unscalable walls around his private self. Maybe that was typical for someone of his status. Regardless, she counted herself lucky. Just last night she had been alone on the brink of despair. Now, she had a potential chance to rebuild, if only she could prove she was worth the risk. Clutching her resume, Jessica stepped into the elevator again, heading toward the second-floor workspace. Her mind buzzed with questions about how to handle the conversation with Callie, what references she might need, and which examples of her design work would be the strongest. Nerves threatened to overwhelm her, but she held on to the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, this bizarre turn of events could be the start of something new. "Would you like me to continue with section 410? O1 Pro. Você disse, yes. O chat GPT, disse. Solicitação de O1 Pro Mod. Terminaux de réfléchir fortin. The elevator ride down to the second-floor offices felt longer than it should have. Jessica's reflection in the mirrored interior caught her eye, a reminder of the extraordinary changes that had taken place in less than a day. She had woken up with no real home, no direction, and certainly no hope. Now she was standing in a luxurious penthouse building, about to meet Adam Carter's personal assistant to discuss her future. The absurdity of it made her chest tighten with a mixture of excitement and fear. She stepped into a wide corridor lined with frosted glass doors. A discreet directory on the wall read, "Carter Innovations Private Offices." The hushed atmosphere was punctuated only by a distant hum of fluorescent lights. Jessica clutched her resume, nerves buzzing. She hadn't expected to be thrust into a formal environment so quickly. Her clothes, freshly dried but still rumpled, felt painfully out of place among these pristine surroundings. At the end of the hall, she found a reception desk manned by a polished young man in a crisp gray suit. He offered a professional smile the moment she approached. "Good morning. You must be Ms. Flores?" Jessica nodded, forcing a smile in return. "Yes, hi. I'm supposed to meet Callie here?" He picked up a sleek phone from its base. "She's just finalizing a call, so please have a seat. Can I get you water or coffee?" "Water is fine, thanks." A moment later, Jessica settled onto a comfortable chair in a small waiting area. She sipped from a chilled glass of water and tried to steady her breathing. The decor here was consistent with everything else she'd seen. Modern, understated, with neutral tones and a few abstract paintings. A large window behind her looked down on the city streets. Watching cars creep along below, she realized she was perched well above her old reality. When Callie finally emerged from one of the glass-paneled offices, Jessica spotted a petite woman in her late 20s with a sleek bob haircut. Her heels clicked decisively on the polished floor. "Jessica?" she asked, scanning the area. Jessica stood quickly, almost spilling her water. "Yes, that's me." Callie offered a brisk yet friendly handshake. "I'm Callie Thompson. Good to meet you in person. Mr. Carter told me about your situation. Just the basics, of course." Her expression was professional, but Jessica sensed genuine warmth behind it. "Why don't we step into my office and go over a few things?" Following Callie into a small but sophisticated office, Jessica tried to keep her posture confident. The assistant gestured for her to sit at a round table rather than the more imposing desk on the other side of the room. Jessica appreciated that small kindness. It felt less intimidating. So, Callie began, flipping open a sleek tablet. "I understand Adam, Mr. Carter, would like us to help you settle in somewhere safe and also get you on track for potential job leads. Is that correct?" Jessica nodded, trying to keep her nerves under control. "Yes, I don't want to impose, but he was very insistent about a stable living arrangement and updating my resume. I really appreciate anything you can do." Callie smiled. "Impose? Hardly. Trust me, if Mr. Carter didn't want to help, you wouldn't be here. He's selective, let's say, about where he invests his time and resources. That said, you should know he expects dedication in return. But let's start with the basics. Housing. Are you okay with a small apartment outside the main city center, or do you need to be downtown?" Jessica thought about it. The city center was more convenient for potential interviews, but she also knew it was expensive. "I'm open to anything that's not too far away, as long as it's safe and somewhat affordable," she said, then caught herself. "Although Mr. Carter mentioned possibly covering initial costs until I can pay him back." Callie tapped her tablet, pulling up listings. "He did mention that. He wants me to find you something that's not a luxury condo, but also not in a risky neighborhood. We might have a lead on a studio in Midtown, quiet building, decent access to public transport." Jessica felt warmth spread across her chest. Even a simple studio sounded like a dream after weeks of couch hopping. "That sounds perfect," she murmured. "Thank you." Callie nodded once, her expression efficient. All right. Next topic, phone. I can have one of our corporate lines activated for you, just a standard model, no fancy perks. It'll be on a short-term plan so we can terminate it once you get a permanent arrangement. You'll need a reliable way for recruiters or potential employers to reach you. Jessica exhaled relief. Yes, absolutely. My current phone is, unreliable to say the least. Good. Then about the job search. Mr. Carter has a few contacts in design and related fields. He'd like me to set up a meeting with one of them, a friend of his from a boutique branding agency called Keane & Beck. They occasionally take on freelancers. If it works out, you could start with short-term projects. Jessica clutched her resume in her lap. That would be amazing. But they'll want to see my portfolio. Most of what I have is digital on an old USB drive, plus some samples online. My laptop is broken right now, so I haven't been able to polish anything recently. Callie typed a note. No problem. We can give you access to a spare company laptop in one of the conference rooms here. You can update your files, finalize your resume, and gather a curated folder of your best work. Keane & Beck likes concise presentations, by the way. 5 to 10 strong samples is better than a massive archive. It all felt too good to be true. Jessica half expected someone to burst in and say it was a mistake, that she had no right to any of these opportunities. Yet Callie continued without pause, as if everything was perfectly normal. The assistant locked eyes with her, pushing her tablet aside. Before we go any further, I want to be upfront. Mr. Carter can be demanding. He doesn't like half-finished tasks or wasted potential. If he's offering you a fresh start, it's because he sees some possibility in you. But you'll need to step up, fast. He's not going to micromanage you, but he'll expect results. Jessica swallowed, a flicker of determination sparking in her chest. I understand. Really, I'll give it my all. Good. Callie's smile softened. I've been working with him for 4 years. If you're honest, hardworking, and don't get tangled in unnecessary drama, you'll earn his respect. Now, let's talk schedule. I can arrange for you to see that studio apartment this afternoon if you'd like, and also set you up with the phone. Then tomorrow, or the next day, we can finalize your design portfolio so you're ready to meet Keane & Beck. Jessica practically glowed. Yes, please, let's do that. Great. One last thing. Mr. Carter mentioned you might be without any personal funds right now. Do you want me to handle a small cash advance for essentials? Groceries, transit, maybe a few pieces of professional clothing, just until you're stable. Embarrassment flared, but pride had no place here. Jessica knew she had to swallow it. That would help a lot, she admitted quietly. I'll pay it all back as soon as I can. Of course, I'll coordinate with our finance associate to set up a basic expense account. You'll keep receipts to track everything. That's all we ask. The moment felt surreal. Just yesterday, Jessica was turned away from an interview and left with nowhere to sleep. Now she was discussing housing, a job lead, and a short-term expense account with a top executive's personal assistant. It was dizzying, but also exhilarating. Callie stood. Let's start by getting you that phone. Then we'll schedule your apartment viewing. Follow me. Jessica followed her out of the office, back into the quiet hallway. Along the corridor, they passed a few employees in suits who nodded politely at Callie. Jessica couldn't help wondering what these people would think if they knew her story. A random stranger, saved by the CEO on a whim? The rumor mill in big companies was no joke, but maybe Adam's staff was well-trained not to pry. They reached a small side room with shelves of tech equipment, phones, chargers, tablets, all neatly labeled. Callie scanned a barcode on a box containing a basic smartphone. She handed it to Jessica, explaining that they'd activate it within the hour. Once it's activated, I'll email you a new number. You can start using it for calls and any immediate communication. We'll finalize any details about data plans later, okay? Jessica nodded, hugging the phone box to her chest. Yes, thank you. Now, about the apartment. Callie checked her watch. We should go soon if we want to beat midday traffic. I'll have the car brought around. No offense, but I assume you don't have a car here? Jessica chuckled awkwardly. Not exactly, no. I took public transit everywhere until I couldn't afford the passes. Callie offered a sympathetic nod. We'll figure that out too if you end up needing consistent transportation. But let's focus on housing first. Within minutes, they were descending to the lobby. The uniformed guard from the night before was stationed near the doors, giving Jessica a polite smile. She felt a pang of relief that he didn't seem to recognize her as the drenched woman from the previous night. Her hair was no longer tangled, and her clothes, though still wrinkled, looked less pitiful. She followed Callie outside to a waiting black sedan, distinctly less ostentatious than Adam's sports car, but still quite upscale. A driver stepped forward to open the rear door. Jessica slid into the back seat next to Callie, trying not to gawk at the plush interior. The driver navigated the busy streets with practiced ease. Jessica peered out the window at the bustle of midday traffic, pedestrians scurrying across walkways, and the gleam of high-rises overhead. Everything looked brighter, more hopeful. Callie made a series of phone calls, verifying that the studio apartment was ready to be viewed and that the leasing agent would meet them there. In between calls, she typed away on her tablet. Jessica sat quietly, absorbing the moment. Her mind replayed the events of the morning, Adam's matter-of-fact generosity, Callie's thorough organization, the promise of a real place to call her own. She wanted to pinch herself. It wasn't long before the sedan turned onto a quieter street lined with older, modest buildings. They stopped in front of a renovated complex with a simple brick exterior and neat landscaping. Jessica's heart thumped nervously. This could be her future home. Inside the lobby, the leasing agent was waiting, a woman in a neat blazer. She recognized Callie by name and offered them both a polite handshake. "Shall we look at the unit?" Jessica followed the agent up 2 flights of stairs. The building had no elevator, but that didn't bother her, until they reached a narrow hallway. At the end was a door with fresh paint. The agent unlocked it and stepped aside so Jessica could enter first. It was small, yes, but bright. A single room with a kitchenette along one wall, a wide window facing a tree-lined street, and a little alcove that could fit a twin bed or perhaps a fold-out couch. There was a compact bathroom, newly tiled. Jessica's gaze roamed over every corner. She imagined a small desk for her design work, maybe a bookshelf, and above all, the security of 4 walls that belonged to her, even if temporarily. "Utilities are included," the agent explained. "There's a laundry room downstairs. We have a secure front door with an entry code. It's mostly young professionals or students here. Very quiet." Callie shot Jessica a questioning look. "What do you think?" A lump rose in Jessica's throat. It was everything she could hope for. A decent address, a place to keep her belongings, once she had more than a duffel bag, that is, and an environment that felt safe. No more imposing on acquaintances, no more nights in uncertain, sometimes shady hostels. "It's perfect," Jessica managed, her voice cracking slightly. "Really, it's more than I ever expected." The leasing agent smiled, handing Callie a folder of paperwork. "We can finalize the lease today if the references and payments are in order." She glanced at Jessica with a professional but kind expression. "Welcome, potentially, to your new home." Callie opened the folder, scanning documents. "We'll handle the deposit and the first 2 months up front, as Mr. Carter requested. Then Ms. Flores here can take over once she's settled into a job." Jessica felt her cheeks warming. It was all so direct, so businesslike, but it filled her with gratitude. These people, strangers really, were clearing every hurdle she'd struggled with for months. She caught Callie's eye. "I promise I'll sign whatever I need to. Pay it all back." Callie gave a reassuring nod. "Mr. Carter trusts I'll handle the details. Let's do a quick final walkthrough, and if everything checks out, I'll sign on his behalf. You'll have a key this afternoon." The thought of actually holding that key in her hand left Jessica breathless. She paced around the studio once more, letting her imagination fill in details. A small second-hand sofa, maybe a bright rug to offset the neutral walls, a single plant in the window. Quiet evenings spent working on design projects on a borrowed laptop. No more scrounging for a safe place to sleep. Within half an hour, the papers were signed. The agent gave Jessica a set of keys. She cradled them in her palm as though they were solid gold. A few forms required her signature too, mostly disclaimers and personal details, which she filled out with a shaking hand. Once it was all done, they said their goodbyes in the hallway, the agent offering a promise to email a digital copy of the contract. Jessica and Callie made their way back to the car. The assistant seemed unflappable, already lining up Jessica's next tasks. "We'll drop by a store so you can grab some toiletries and maybe a fresh change of clothes. Then we'll return to the offices. You can work on your portfolio for an hour or two. If that suits you?" Jessica gently grasped the keys in her pocket. "Yes, absolutely. And, Callie, I really can't say how grateful I am. To Mr. Carter, and to you." Callie's poised demeanor softened slightly. "Don't thank me yet, just make the most of this chance." She typed something on her tablet. "Because Adam, he doesn't give second chances often." Jessica's heart fluttered, a mix of motivation and unease. She sank into the car seat, watching the small brick building disappear behind them as the driver pulled away. The keys to her new studio pressed reassuringly against her thigh, solid proof that her life had just taken a leap forward. But along with the gratitude came a flicker of worry. This sudden generosity must come with heavy expectations. Adam Carter wouldn't remain patient forever. If Jessica faltered, if she couldn't prove her worth, how quickly would she lose all this newfound ground? Brushing that dread aside, she resolved to focus on what lay directly ahead. She'd gather her best designs, practice her pitches, and show Keenan Beck that she wasn't just a pity case. For the first time in far too long, she had an opportunity to stand tall on her own. The last 24 hours might have turned her world upside down, but Jessica vowed to meet each new challenge with everything she had. Would you like me to continue with section 510? O1 Pro. Você disse yes. O ChatGPT disse, a casa no bosque. Pensou por 1M, 57 beads 510. Back at the Carter Innovations offices, Jessica tried not to feel self-conscious about her new outfit, a simple blouse and trousers she and Callie had picked out at a reasonably priced store. Nothing fancy, but at least they were crisp and professional, far better than the rumpled clothes she arrived in. Her hair was combed into a neat ponytail, and she felt more put together than she had in months. Callie led her through a maze of hallways until they arrived at a small conference room near the end of a quiet corridor. Inside was a round table, a few chairs, and a large window overlooking the city. Sunlight filtered through half-lowered blinds, illuminating the smooth surface of a laptop waiting in the middle of the table. "Here we go," Callie said, powering it on. "I had IT load some basic software so you can edit your portfolio. Everything's saved to a private folder. Once you're done, we can transfer your final files to a USB or cloud storage." Jessica approached, running her fingers along the laptop's edge. She couldn't recall the last time she'd had proper design software at her disposal. The battered device she once owned had died a slow death months ago, leaving her to rely on public library computers, hardly ideal for creative work. "Thank you," she murmured. "I'll try to be quick." Callie shook her head. "No rush. Take whatever time you need. I might come back to check on you later. Feel free to step out if you need water or a restroom break. My office is 2 doors down if you have any questions." With that, she offered a brief nod of encouragement and disappeared into the hallway, leaving Jessica alone with her thoughts. The hush of the conference room felt almost reverent. Jessica exhaled slowly, rolling her shoulders to ease the tightness that formed whenever she felt pressured. Right now, her life depended on how well she could present her work. This was her chance to prove to Keen and Beck, and indirectly to Adam Carter, that she was more than a stray in need of rescue. She clicked open a web browser and accessed her email. Slowly, she began retrieving old files from her cloud drive, many of which she hadn't touched in months. Sketches, logos, brochure layouts, bits and pieces of past work she'd done at the now-defunct design studio. She cringed at some of them, seeing small flaws or outdated techniques. But hidden among the pile were a few real gems, her best branding concepts, digital illustrations that captured a hint of her personal flair. One by one, she downloaded them, opening them in a design suite to polish each piece. Time slipped away as she lost herself in cropping edges, adjusting color palettes, and adding subtle finishing touches. In a matter of hours, she refined her entire portfolio, discarding weaker pieces and enhancing her strongest ones. The process felt almost therapeutic. She recalled how much she loved design, how it had once brought her genuine excitement and satisfaction. As she worked, memories of the old studio flickered through her mind. Late nights brainstorming with colleagues, the rush of seeing a finished product in a client's hands, the little celebrations when someone landed a big contract. Those moments had been overshadowed by the heartbreak of losing it all, but the spark of that passion still lived inside her. Eventually, Jessica compiled her best work into a single digital folder. She created a PDF presentation for easy viewing, plus a set of individual files for anyone wanting a closer look. She added short descriptions for each project, her role, the tools she'd used, the goals of the client. It was the polished result of years of on and off experience, battered by the hardships she'd faced. Leaning back in her chair, she stared at the final product. A small smile tugged at her lips. It wasn't the most expansive portfolio, but it represented her true capabilities. Now she needed only the chance to show it to potential employers. Looking at the corner of the screen, she realized it was late afternoon. She'd been working for nearly 4 hours straight. Outside, the sun had shifted, and the corridor lights felt cooler. Her stomach rumbled, reminding her she'd barely eaten since breakfast. Gathering her courage, she slipped into the hallway to see if Callie was around. As she passed a few offices, she noticed employees hunched over spreadsheets or whispering into headsets. The energy was focused, purposeful. Finally, she spotted Callie in her office, scanning something on her screen. The assistant glanced up, smiled, and beckoned her in. "All done?" Callie asked. Jessica nodded, feeling a swell of pride. "I think so. I cleaned up my best projects, compiled them, and I'm ready to show them whenever your contact at Keen & Beck is free." "Great news," Callie replied, turning toward her phone. "Actually, I spoke with them an hour ago. They'd like to meet you tomorrow if you're free. It'll be an informal chat to start, maybe just half an hour in the afternoon. Are you comfortable with that?" Tomorrow. Jessica swallowed, adrenaline sparking. It was so soon. "Yes, absolutely. I'll be ready." Callie gave an approving nod, then her phone buzzed with a short text message. She checked it briefly. "Oh, Mr. Carter wants to see you in his office, probably just to see how you're doing." Jessica's pulse fluttered. She took a steadying breath. "All right. Should I go now?" "Sure. You remember where his penthouse is, right? He's expecting you upstairs." Callie's eyes sparkled as though she could sense Jessica's nerves. "And don't worry, he's in a decent mood today." That last remark was only slightly reassuring. Jessica made her way to the elevator, her heart pounding in sync with each ding that counted the floors. She thought about the day's triumphs, signing a lease for the studio, building a reliable portfolio. It had all been orchestrated by Adam Carter's generosity. But what was his angle in all of this? Did he simply take pity on her? Or was there something else driving him? Stepping off at the penthouse level, she paused in the foyer to catch her breath. The same luxurious corridor stretched out, leading to Adam's double door. She knocked lightly, feeling her pulse hammering in her throat. The door opened to reveal Adam himself, dressed in a dark blazer over a crisp shirt. Slightly more relaxed than the morning, but still every inch the decisive CEO. A subtle frown crossed his brow, then eased. "Jessica, come in." She entered, noticing that the penthouse was dimmer now, with the sun lowering behind tall buildings in the distance. Adam gestured to the expansive living area, but remained standing as she walked in. On a nearby table lay a stack of paperwork, a tablet, and a few unopened letters. "Callie says you've finished your portfolio," he said, crossing his arms. His gaze roamed her face, as though evaluating her composure. "Yes," Jessica replied, voice steady. "I've put together my best pieces, polished them up. Callie arranged a meeting for me at Keen & Beck tomorrow." Adam nodded. "That's quick. Good. People who move fast tend to get my respect." A hint of approval sparkled in his dark eyes, though it vanished almost as soon as it appeared. "What's next, then? You have the apartment keys, correct?" She patted her bag, where the keys were safely tucked away. "Yes, we got it all sorted. I'll start moving in tonight." "Fine." He paused, tapping a finger against the back of a chair. "Well, I wanted to check on your progress. Make sure everything is on track. If you need anything else, this is your chance to speak up." Jessica parted her lips, but words momentarily failed her. She wanted to pour out gratitude, to express how life-changing his help was. But a part of her sensed Adam didn't want a big emotional display. Instead, she answered carefully, "I think we've covered all the essentials. I'm set for tomorrow's interview, and I'll be out of your guest suite tonight, so you don't have to worry about me being in the building anymore." She caught a slight flicker in his gaze. If he felt relief or regret, she couldn't tell, but something shifted in his posture. "Understood," he said. "Of course, if Keen & Beck requires references or more background details, let Callie know. We can expedite that. The sooner you land something, the better, for everyone." A wry grin threatened to tug at Jessica's lips. The phrase, "for everyone," felt telling. She could appreciate his logic. After all, supporting her wasn't exactly part of his business plan. "Yes, I promise I'll do my best." Adam inclined his head, turning slightly toward the windows. The orange glow of the setting sun cast a warm highlight on his face. In that light, he looked less imposing, almost thoughtful. "Jessica," he said quietly, "you do realize that if you fail to seize this opportunity, there's no do-over. I don't intervene in people's lives twice." A chill danced along her spine. It was a stark reminder of what was at stake. Adam's help wasn't indefinite. He expected to see results, something tangible. She met his gaze, letting her own resolve show. "I know, and I won't waste it." Satisfied with her response, he walked to a side table and picked up a small envelope. "Before you go, here's something Callie prepared. An itemized list of the funds used today for your apartment deposit, your phone, and basic living expenses. We'll add to it if needed. Keep it safe. Once you earn money, you can repay in installments. No interest, just a straightforward debt. Understood?" "Yes," Jessica managed, taking the envelope gingerly. He gave a short nod, as though concluding a transaction. "All right. Good luck with Keen & Beck. You can update me afterward." She realized that was her cue to leave. Her tongue felt heavy with gratitude she couldn't quite put into polite words. Instead, she offered a respectful nod. "Thank you, Mr. Carter," she said softly, then turned to go. As she reached the door, he spoke again, more softly. "And Jessica, just call me Adam. Mr. Carter sounds too formal." Surprised, she turned, eyes wide, and found him regarding her with that inscrutable expression. "Thank you, Adam," she replied, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. The elevator ride down felt almost serene. The building's lights flickered on as evening darkened the city. Jessica's phone, her new phone, vibrated with a text from Callie. "Everything good? Let me know if you need the driver to take you to your new place." Jessica typed back a quick thanks, stepping through the lobby with light footsteps. She had more help than she ever dreamed possible. An assistant ready to coordinate rides, an interview lined up for tomorrow, and a roof she could call hers. Yet the weight of responsibility pressed down as well. Adam's unwavering expectation loomed large. Outside, the city vibrated with the energy of nightfall, headlights, neon signs, the rush of pedestrians. Jessica inhaled, hugging the envelope to her side. One more ride, then she'd be in her new studio, alone with her thoughts, and the next step of her transformation. A taxi pulled up, courtesy of Callie's quick arrangements, and Jessica climbed inside. As she sank into the seat, she allowed a tiny smile to surface. Tomorrow she'd walk into Keen & Beck with her chin high. She'd show them, and Adam Carter, that she wasn't just some pitiful stray but a real talent worthy of a second chance. Soon streetlights blurred past the window, their glow reflecting the flicker of hope she carried. The studio apartment awaited, and beyond that, a whole new horizon. She wasn't naive enough to think it would be easy, but for the first time in a long while, her heart felt steady, her mind focused. She had a chance to rebuild a life she'd almost lost, and she intended to make the most of it. Would you like me to continue with section 610? O1 Pro. Você disse yes. Tudo o ChatGPT disse solicitação de O1 Promote. Terminou de refletir 610. Jessica juggled a paper grocery bag in one arm, fumbling with her new apartment keys in the other. Despite how simple it looked, getting the key to turn just right in the fresh lock was trickier than she'd expected. Finally, the door yielded with a soft click, and she stepped inside. She flicked on a light and was greeted by the gentle glow reflecting off the freshly painted walls of her tiny studio. Setting the groceries on the narrow kitchen counter, she let out a long exhale. The day had been a whirlwind, meeting after meeting, finishing her portfolio, an unexpectedly direct conversation with Adam Carter. But now, standing in her own space, she realized how quiet it was. A hush enveloped her, broken only by the faint hum of traffic wafting up from the street below. She took a few minutes to look around, taking stock of the bare essentials. There was a small bed in the corner. She'd found a discounted mattress online and had it delivered that afternoon. A used table stood by the window, serving as a makeshift desk. Callie had helped arrange a basic floor lamp. Boxes that she'd collected from thrift shops and rummage sales were stacked near the door, mostly empty. Jessica had so few possessions left that the room felt almost hollow. Yet every bit of emptiness felt like promise. There was space for a new life to grow here. Before she could collapse in exhaustion, she needed to prepare for the next day's meeting at Keen & Beck. She pulled out the laptop Adam's office had loaned her, setting it on the desk. The screen glowed to life, and she double-checked her presentation files, scrolling through each design piece one final time. A flutter of nerves danced in her stomach. This interview was crucial, not just for a paycheck, but as proof that she was worth the faith Adam had shown in her. After ensuring everything was in order, Jessica glanced at the small clock app on her phone. It was already pushing past 8 p.m. Her mind wandered to dinner. She'd only bought a few groceries, bread, peanut butter, some fruit, enough to tide her over until her first payday, if it ever came. She made a simple sandwich, opened a carton of juice, and sat cross-legged on the floor in the middle of her new apartment. The overhead bulb cast shadows on the bare walls. Her phone chimed. She picked it up to see a message from Callie. Remember Keen & Beck, 2 p.m. tomorrow. Arrive 10 minutes early at least. Don't forget to dress professionally. Let me know if you need anything. Jessica felt a tiny rush of gratitude. She typed back a quick acknowledgement, adding a polite, "Thanks so much for everything." She knew that while Adam was the driving force, Callie was an invaluable guide navigating all the details. When she finished her sandwich, she realized how truly drained she was. Part of her wanted to rehearse potential interview answers, but her body screamed for rest. She made a mental note to wake early, do a final run-through of her presentation, and maybe try to pick out the best outfit from the few she owned. A single outfit, realistically. Sighing, she shut off the light and curled up on her bed. The city's glow seeped through the window, and she drifted to sleep, hoping that tomorrow's interview would prove she deserved this second chance. Morning came sooner than expected, the hazy sunlight rousing Jessica from a restless sleep. She'd dreamt of missed buses, locked doors, and that sinking feeling of being late to an interview. Shaking off the lingering nerves, She padded into her tiny kitchenette and made instant coffee. Even the cheap powder tasted better than nothing, she decided, cradling the steaming mug as she mentally mapped out the day. By 11 a.m., she was showered and dressed in the same outfit she'd worn to Adam's office, freshly laundered the night before. She brushed out her hair, pulling it back into a tidy low bun, hoping it looked professional enough for a design firm. As she caught her reflection in the mirror, she thought she still looked tired, but there was a spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Hope, perhaps. Right on cue, her phone buzzed again. Another text from Callie. "Good luck today. Let me know how it goes." The cheer in those words warmed Jessica's chest. She left her apartment, portfolio-laden laptop in a slim bag, and headed for the bus stop. Even though Adam's driver might have been available, she felt it was best to stand on her own 2 feet as much as possible. Public transit was a small step toward independence. The ride across town took about 30 minutes. Jessica arrived a solid quarter-hour early in front of a sleek mid-rise building with floor-to-ceiling windows. A modest sign near the entrance read, "Keen and Beck Branding and Creative." Her heart gave a little lurch. This was it. Inside, the lobby was cozy but stylish, adorned with vibrant posters of past branding campaigns. Jessica approached the front desk, introduced herself, and was directed to a small waiting area. 2 other people sat there, flipping through magazines, presumably waiting for their own appointments. She swallowed hard. Was she competing with them for the same role? Her mind flashed back to all the rejection she'd faced. For a second, panic threatened to creep in. But she remembered Adam's words. There would be no second shot from him. She steadied her breath and reminded herself of how far she'd come. She had to trust her portfolio would speak for itself. At precisely 2 p.m., a cheerful tattoo-sleeved employee stepped out, calling her name. Jessica stood, smoothing her blouse. The woman introduced herself as Naomi, one of the agency's senior designers. "Come on in," Naomi said, leading Jessica to a bright, open space filled with large communal tables, vibrant murals on the walls, and half-drunk cups of coffee everywhere. "We're pretty relaxed around here," Naomi explained, guiding Jessica into a glass-walled conference room at the back. "But we do get serious when it comes to creativity and meeting client expectations. Just a heads up." Inside the room, a second person awaited them, an older man in rimless glasses, seated at one end of a large table scattered with design sketches. Naomi introduced him as Clarence, one of Keen and Beck's partners. He offered a polite nod and motioned for Jessica to take a seat. "So," he began, flipping through a small stack of notes, "Adam Carter mentioned we might want to look at your work. He said you were formerly at a smaller design studio that unfortunately closed." His tone was curious, not accusatory. Jessica cleared her throat. "Yes, sir, I was with Banyan Creative for about 2 years. They specialized in local business branding, but the owners had to shut down due to financial troubles. I've done freelance here and there since then." She carefully set her laptop on the table. Clarence waved a hand in polite dismissal of formalities. "Please, no sir, just Clarence is fine. Let's see what you've got." Naomi leaned forward as Jessica opened her PDF presentation. Her heart hammered as each page loaded. She started by explaining a few rebranding projects she'd worked on for small cafes, then moved on to concept sketches for local nonprofits. Each time she paused, she waited for questions or signs of approval. Naomi's eyes gleamed whenever she spotted a vibrant color scheme or a clever logo concept. Clarence nodded thoughtfully, occasionally scribbling notes on a pad. At one point, he asked about Jessica's process, how she communicates with clients, manages revisions, handles tight deadlines. She answered as confidently as she could, drawing from her past experience. It felt surreal. She was finally in front of people who actually cared about design, not just a generic HR manager skimming her resume. Naomi even cracked a few jokes about clients who can't make up their minds. Jessica found herself relaxing, letting her genuine enthusiasm seep into her voice. After reviewing her final project, a playful yet professional brand kit for a children's bookstore, Jessica closed the laptop. She'd laid everything out, and her nerves were raw. Naomi sat back, tapping a pen against the table. "I like it," she said honestly. "You have a clear eye for balancing boldness with functionality. Clarence, thoughts?" The older man pushed his glasses higher up his nose, a slight smile curving his lips. "I see potential. Some of your color palettes might need refining for bigger corporate clients, but that's teachable. I sense you adapt quickly, too." Jessica could hardly believe what she was hearing. "Thank you," she said, voice subdued with relief. Naomi and Clarence exchanged a glance. Then Naomi spoke. "We don't have a full-time position open at the moment, but we often bring on talented freelancers for project-based work. If you're interested, we could start you on a trial project, see how you handle our workflow, and go from there." Jessica sat a little straighter. Even a trial gig was more than she'd dared hope for this soon. "Yes, absolutely. I'd love that." "All right," Clarence said, closing his notepad. "We'll have Naomi assign something short-term. Likely a small brand refresh for a local startup. We can negotiate hours and pay. How soon can you start?" She almost laughed at the question, a joy welling in her chest. "Immediately," she answered. "I'm ready whenever you are." Naomi grinned, standing up. "Cool. Let's set up a quick meeting tomorrow so we can give you a brief. Sound good?" Jessica nodded vigorously, trying not to look like she might cry from happiness. They shook hands, and Naomi escorted her back to the lobby. On the way out, Jessica took in the vibrant workspace again, heart fluttering with anticipation. She'd be part of this creative environment, even if only for a trial period. It was a step forward. Outside, the air felt lighter, the city's bustle a happy backdrop to her triumphant mood. She wanted to text someone, Callie or maybe even Adam, to share the news. But she paused, realizing Adam probably didn't expect a flood of updates on every minor victory. He was a results-oriented man, after all. Instead, she dashed off a quick note to Callie. "Interview went well. They're giving me a freelance trial, starting tomorrow." Callie's response was immediate. "Awesome. Congratulations. Keep it up. I'll let Mr. Carter know." Jessica's cheeks warmed, imagining Adam's neutral nod upon hearing the news. Perhaps a small flicker of satisfaction in his dark eyes. She felt a surge of pride in proving that his investment in her wasn't misplaced. At least, not so far. On the bus ride back to her apartment, she gazed out the window, letting the city lights blur into streaks of gold against the twilight. Tomorrow, she'd be returning to a real design environment, however temporary. She whispered a silent thanks, thinking of the bizarre night she found herself in Adam's sports car, crying her eyes out. Life had yanked her from the brink of despair and tossed her into a realm of possibility. She arrived home, flipping on her modest overhead light and kicking off her shoes. The studio felt calmer than ever. She rummaged for something to eat, her mind racing with ideas for the brand refresh project she might tackle soon. Her phone buzzed again, a short message from Adam's office line. "Heard you got a trial gig. Well done." Despite the terseness, the words made Jessica grin. She typed back, "Thank you. Won't let you down." After a moment's thought, she added a second text. "Appreciate everything. Really." No response came. Likely Adam was too busy or simply uninterested in texting further. Still, the acknowledgement warmed Jessica's heart. She set her phone aside, sank onto her bed, and allowed herself to replay the interview in her mind. Each question answered, each smile from Naomi and Clarence, signs that she was indeed capable, not just a pity case. Between the relief and excitement, she almost forgot she hadn't had a proper meal since midday. But exhaustion claimed her first. She lay back, letting the city's nighttime hum lull her, a soft smile lingering on her lips. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new responsibilities, and she was more than ready to face them. For the first time in a very long time, Jessica Flores closed her eyes with confidence that things were finally turning around and that she had the determination to see it through. O One Pro, você disse yes. O ChatGPT disse continuação da história. Pensou por 1:41:7:10. Jessica arrived at Keenan Beck the next morning with a fresh jolt of excitement. The building's lobby, which had been friendly and bright the day before, was now buzzing with creative types carrying sketches, laptops, and rolls of design proofs. Her hands tightened around the strap of her bag as she breathed in the sense of purpose in the air. She was 10 minutes early for the briefing Naomi had mentioned. After introducing herself at the front desk, she was asked to wait near a cluster of comfy chairs. A few minutes later, Naomi approached from a hallway, sporting a vibrant scarf and her usual energetic smile. "Morning, newbie," she teased in a light tone. "Ready for your first official trial project?" Jessica's nerves and excitement intertwined, but she forced a confident nod. "Absolutely, let's do it." Naomi led her into an open-concept workspace. Long tables and half-partitioned desks were scattered with colorful mock-ups, brand guidelines, and half-empty cups of coffee. Some employees were deep in animated discussions while others hunched over digital tablets, earphones engrossed in their tasks. She could practically feel the creative energy zipping from desk to desk. They settled into a small meeting nook, partitioned by frosted glass walls. On a table sat a file folder labeled Brand Refresh, Bloom and Grow. Naomi handed it over, tapping the cover. "Here we go. Bloom and Grow is a local plant shop. They've been around for a while, but now they want a modern, upbeat look without losing the cozy vibe. We'll start small. Logo update, color scheme, maybe some in-store signage. If they like it, we might move on to their website." Jessica flipped through the folder. Photos of potted succulents and crawling vines jumped off the page, accompanied by the shop's old-fashioned logo, a stylized watering can, and cramped cursive text. She nodded thoughtfully. "They definitely need something more contemporary, but we can keep that homey feel in the typography and palette." Naomi beamed. "Exactly what I was thinking. Our main objective is to keep the brand approachable, like a friendly neighborhood spot, while giving it a crisp, modern twist. We have about a week to show them initial concepts." "Got it," Jessica replied, mentally sketching ideas already. "I'll mock up a few directions." Naomi passed over a USB stick. "Some reference photos, plus our standard guidelines for logo files. And by the way, don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel. Just be true to their identity. If all goes well, you'll present concepts with me next Wednesday." Jessica took a breath, adrenaline thrumming. This was more responsibility than she'd expected for a trial, but she was thrilled at the chance to prove herself. "I'll get to work right away." Naomi then guided her to a spare desk, a compact station with a second-hand office chair near a window that overlooked a side street. A half wall gave her a bit of privacy, but kept her in the open office environment. "Make yourself at home here," Naomi said. "If you need any resources, fonts, stock images, color libraries, let me or the design ops team know. We also have a small break area in back if you need coffee or tea." Settling into the seat, Jessica booted up the assigned workstation. As soon as the operating system loaded, she created a new folder titled Bloom and Grow Concepts. Her heart fluttered again. This was real, a genuine design task that she would be credited for if it went well. She reminded herself to keep calm and methodical. She didn't want to blow her one shot by rushing. Before she could lose herself in the swirl of ideas, Naomi tapped her shoulder. "By the way, we have a short daily stand-up meeting in 15 minutes. It's not super formal, but we usually gather near the big whiteboard to share progress or blockers. You can join if you want. It'll help you feel part of the team." Jessica's lips curved in a small smile. "I'd love to. Thanks." The stand-up meeting was unlike any office assembly Jessica had experienced. Instead of stiffly reading bullet points, Each creative took about 30 seconds to update the group on what they were working on. The atmosphere was playful. One designer joked about battling a stubborn color mismatch. Another teased that the coffee machine was the true MVP. People listened attentively, offered quick tips, then moved on. When it was Jessica's turn, she felt a jolt of nerves. I'm Jessica," she began, hands clasped. "I'm new here, technically a freelancer, and I'm doing some initial concepts for Bloom & Grow's rebrand. I'll be focusing on the logo updates this week." The group gave her small nods and encouraging smiles. One person piped up, "Don't forget to check out the brand resource library so you can keep the file types consistent." Another pointed out, "We have a color calibration tool in the design ops area. Might help if you're trying out bold colors." Just like that, it was accepted she was part of the team. No grilling, no side-eye. By the time the meeting ended, Jessica's tension had melted into grateful excitement. Back at her desk, she dove into mood boards, experimenting with modern yet earthy hues, sage greens, muted browns, even hints of pastel pink to evoke blooms. She drafted a few rough sketches on paper first, testing fonts in a swirl of inspiration. Hours passed without her noticing, so absorbed was she in shaping the visual identity of Bloom & Grow. Around lunchtime, Naomi appeared with 2 cardboard boxes of takeout. "Hey, we're ordering in. If you want to chip in, it's no biggie, or you can just handle your own lunch. But I figured we'd welcome you properly. My treat this time." Jessica, who'd been planning on a simple packed sandwich, couldn't hide her appreciation. "That's really nice of you, thank you." They moved to a communal table where a few designers had already started eating. Naomi introduced Jessica more casually. "This is the brand new star from Banyan Creative." People greeted her with easy grins and a scatter of, "Nice to have you." Jessica felt an unexpected warmth. She'd never found it so effortless to fit into a new workplace culture. During lunch, talk bounced around from design memes to weird client requests. Jessica listened mostly, chiming in when they teased her about escape stories from her last place. She joked that Banyan Creative's biggest downfall was not offering enough free coffee. Laughter followed, and she relaxed even more. This sense of camaraderie was precisely what she'd been missing: creative synergy over shared jokes and mutual challenges. When the afternoon lull hit, Jessica returned to her desk, selecting her strongest logo roughs and refining them with vector software. She carefully saved each iteration, naming them systematically so she could track her progress. Time blurred until a slight beep from her phone startled her. Glancing at the screen, she read a new message from Callie. "Hey, Adam wants an update on how your freelance gig is going. All good?" Jessica blinked. She realized she hadn't thought about Adam all day, so wrapped up was she in designing. A slight guilt tugged at her. He'd pulled so many strings to get her here, yet she hadn't reported back. She texted quickly, "Everything's going great. Working on my first project. I can check in later if needed." Moments later came Callie's reply, "That's okay. Just keep us posted. Proud of you." The corner of Jessica's mouth lifted in a smile. She sensed that although Adam might appear distant, he was keeping an eye on her progress through subtle channels. And that was fine. She'd rather have him see the results than pester him with trivial updates. By late afternoon, Jessica had 3 solid logo concepts. Each took the original Bloom & Grow idea but modernized the style, simplifying the watering can symbol and adding a more open typeface. She layered in color palettes that felt friendly yet clean. Before heading out, she flagged Naomi down. "Would you mind taking a quick look at these initial drafts?" Jessica asked, opening the files on her monitor. "I'd love some feedback before I refine any further." Naomi pulled up a chair, scanning each concept with a sharp eye. She offered straightforward critiques, perhaps shifting the ratio of icon to text or adjusting the spacing. Nothing harsh, just typical design suggestions. "Concept B is my personal fave right now," she mused. "It balances that playful houseplant vibe with a modern edge. Try a few versions of that one in different color combos." Jessica jotted notes on a sticky pad, excitement swirling. She was grateful for the direct, constructive advice, a sure sign that Naomi was invested in her success. "Thanks so much," Jessica said genuinely. "I'll do some variations tomorrow morning." Naomi nodded, gathering her things. "Awesome. I'm out early today. I've got an off-site client thing. But feel free to keep working as long as you want. Or wrap up and continue tomorrow. No pressure." Jessica glanced at the clock, pushing 5 p.m. She realized she'd been at Keenan Beck since just after 9 a.m. "I might stay a bit longer just to mock up a couple more variations, then I'll head home." Naomi shot her a thumbs up. "Perfect. Lock up your station when you're done, and you're golden." Soon the open office area thinned out as people trickled home. Jessica felt a wave of contentment. She was doing real work, no longer filling out endless applications and receiving polite rejections. Instead, she had a chance to create, to solve a branding puzzle, to show her worth. There in the dimming light, she toiled on adjustments, saving each iteration carefully. Around 6:30, her phone buzzed again, Callie, asking if she needed a driver. Jessica decided to politely decline, preferring to handle her own commute. She typed, "I'll take the bus, no worries." As the last few employees switched off their computers, Jessica gathered her bag and powered down. She left Keenan Beck with a smile on her face, stepping onto the sidewalk into the swirl of early evening traffic. The air felt crisp, and she inhaled it like a promise. She was building something real again, a portfolio, a sense of belonging, maybe even a stable future. That evening at her studio, the routine was simple. Reheat leftover noodles on a cheap hot plate, check her emails, and review the day's sketches. The emptiness of the apartment no longer felt bleak. She had work, she had direction, and she had at least one foot in the door of a respected design firm, even if just on a trial basis. After dinner, Jessica settled on her bed, letting her mind wander to Adam. She wondered if he really cared about the details of her first day. Would he even understand the nuances of color palettes and logo redesigns? Probably not. He seemed far more interested in results, raw data, and whether she was meeting expectations. She typed a short email on her phone, addressed to both Callie and Adam. In a concise paragraph, she explained that her day at Keenan Beck had gone smoothly, that she was building new logos for Bloom and Grow, and that the staff seemed pleased with her progress. She ended it by writing, "Thank you again for making this possible. I'll keep you updated on milestones." Hitting send, she felt both relief and a touch of vulnerability. This entire journey still felt like a balancing act, gratefulness mixed with the fear of letting Adam down. A minute later, her screen lit up with a simple response from Adam's email address. "Understood. Keep at it." Typical Adam brevity. She could imagine his cool tone speaking those words. Still, she took it as encouragement. Exhaustion settled in, so she changed into a comfortable t-shirt and laid out her clothes for the next day. She wanted to look consistent and professional, so she'd re-wear the same blouse and trousers, carefully ironed again. Then she sank into bed, letting her mind drift over color palettes and sketches until finally sleep claimed her. Morning arrived with a swirl of anxiety and excitement. Jessica hopped on the bus early, determined to refine her designs before Naomi arrived. She greeted a few of the same employees from the previous day, who recognized her, offering cheery, "Morning," or a quick wave. It dawned on her how quickly a routine could form, and how reassuring that routine felt. At her workstation, she booted up the computer, scanning her design files once more. She had about an hour of quiet time to tweak color combos for Concept B, just as Naomi suggested. She tested subtle shifts, a deeper green for the leaves, a softer cream for the watering can. By the time her co-workers started trickling in, she had a polished set of variants. Naomi found her around mid-morning, leaning in with interest. "Wow, you've been busy already. Mind if I peek?" Jessica turned the monitor. Absolutely. Here are the adjustments to Concept B. I changed the watering can shape slightly, updated the color palette, and tested a few font variations for the text. Naomi's grin was immediate. I love it. The second font option, where Bloom and Grow looks just a bit more rounded, really nails that friendly vibe. This is definitely something we can show the client. Jessica's heart soared. Great. Let me know if you need me to do more. They spent a few more minutes fine-tuning details, and by the end, Naomi announced, I'll set up a quick internal review with Clarence tomorrow. Then we can finalize a pitch deck for the client. If they approve, you're golden. Jessica's pulse thrummed happily. Sounds perfect. By mid-afternoon, Jessica realized she'd barely taken a break. She stepped away to grab a coffee, wandering to the break area. Along the way, she passed a corner office with partially closed blinds. Behind them, she glimpsed Clarence's silhouette, quietly discussing something with a colleague. They seemed locked in a thoughtful conversation. For a split second, doubt pressed into her. What if he changed his mind, or found her designs lacking in some crucial aspect? She pushed that worry aside. The day had been full of small victories, a minor Slack message from a fellow designer complimenting her color choices, Naomi praising her efficiency, and 0 major hurdles so far. She had to trust the momentum. Returning to her desk with fresh coffee, Jessica checked her phone out of habit. A text from Callie waited. Hope all is going well. Adam asked if you're comfortable continuing at Keenan Beck for the entire trial. Just want to confirm you're not feeling overwhelmed. She chuckled quietly at Adam's second-hand inquiry. Tapping a reply, she wrote, I'm good. I can handle it. Tell him I appreciate the thought. As she pressed send, a wave of appreciation for Callie's gentle approach washed over her. In a way, Callie was a buffer between the cold, demanding Adam and her own sometimes over-anxious heart. It gave her the space to focus without the constant looming presence of the CEO who'd saved her from the streets. Time flew again, and soon Jessica was wrapping up for the day. She consolidated her files, saving them to Keenan Beck's shared drive. Before leaving, she left a short note on Naomi's desk. Thanks for all your guidance. See you tomorrow. Exiting the building, she felt a rare contentment. This was work she'd always wanted to do. Even if it was temporary or uncertain, it breathed life back into her ambitions. On the bus ride home, she scrolled through job listings, not because she was unsatisfied, but because she wanted to see what else might be out there if the trial ended. For the first time in ages, she felt optimistic about her prospects. Reaching her studio, the quiet space greeted her like a familiar friend. She heated a small dinner and settled onto her bed, searching online for inspiration. She bookmarked color theory articles, typed notes about store signage, and devoured anything that could make her better at her craft. A ping from her email interrupted her reading, a new message from Adam's address. That alone made her heart skip a beat. She opened it hurriedly. Callie informed me of your progress. Good to hear everything is proceeding smoothly at Keenan Beck. Let me know if the client ends up satisfied with your initial deliverables. A positive referral from Clarence would be useful for your future. AC. The dryness of his signature made her grin. Still, the undertone of support was there. He was clearly paying attention. She quickly composed a response, carefully checking her words. Hi, Adam. Thank you for checking in. I'm halfway through the initial designs, and my supervisor at Keenan Beck seems optimistic. I'll keep you posted once we have the client's response. Thank you again for making this opportunity possible. Jessica. She debated adding something more personal, like the gratitude she felt daily or how this job was rekindling her belief in herself. But given Adam's brevity, she stuck to a professional tone. Pressing send, she set the phone aside, her thoughts filled with color palettes and brand identities, rather than desperate worries about rent or survival. Curling under a thin blanket, she closed her eyes, letting the day's accomplishments wash over her. She was forging a path, one step at a time, and every new chance was a testament to the power of genuine kindness, however curt it might appear coming from Adam Carter. Tonight, the hush in her apartment felt less like emptiness and more like a waiting canvas. Tomorrow could bring success or stumbling blocks, but she was determined to see it through. Would you like me to continue with Section 810? O1 Pro. Você disse yes. O Chat GPT disse solicitação de O1 Pro Mode. Terminou de refletir 810. Jessica's third day at Keen & Beck began with a hum of anticipation. She was scheduled to present her refined logo concepts to Clarence and Naomi in a brief internal review, which would determine whether they'd move forward to show the client. She felt that familiar combination of nerves and excitement bubbling in her stomach. If all went well, she'd be one step closer to sealing her place here, or at least garnering a shining recommendation for future work. When she arrived at her desk, she discovered a post-it note stuck to her monitor. Review meeting, 10:30 a.m. You got this, Naomi. She smiled, touched by the simple encouragement. Already she was feeling the culture of Keen & Beck, supportive, creative, more like a team of friends than a cutthroat agency. After double-checking her final files, Jessica located the small meeting room where she'd pitched her ideas the first time. Through the glass walls, she saw Naomi scribbling something on a whiteboard and Clarence flipping through an older version of the Bloom & Grow branding materials. "Morning," she greeted, stepping inside. She kept her portfolio laptop in one hand and a printout of the latest logo variants in the other. Naomi gestured for her to sit at the table. "All set?" "Yep, everything's loaded," Jessica said, settling into a chair. Her heart thumped steadily, but her nerves steadied when she saw Naomi's reassuring grin. Clarence nodded in greeting. "So, we hear you've got something to show us." With a click, Jessica opened the presentation on the meeting room screen. 3 distinct logo variations for Bloom & Grow popped up side by side. Each iteration kept the homey vibe but offered a cleaner, more modern feel. The colors ranged from subtle pastels to a fresh palette of greens. She walked them through her reasoning. How she'd streamlined the watering can silhouette to be more recognizable at a glance, and how the chosen typeface radiated warmth without looking old-fashioned. She pointed out how each concept could scale for store signage or social media avatars. Nervousness tingled in her fingertips, but she kept her tone confident, her passion shining through. Naomi and Clarence took their time examining each version. Occasionally, they whispered observations to each other. Jessica's pulse lurched every time they paused. Finally, Clarence leaned back, a faint smile on his usually measured face. "I see improvement in the shape from your earlier sketches," he remarked, tapping the screen. "It reads much more clearly as a watering can now. The subtle tweak of the handle helps." Naomi nodded in agreement, then flipped to another variation. "I love this color scheme. It's softer than the standard bright green every plant shop seems to use, yet it's still lively. This might really catch the client's eye." Jessica forced herself to remain composed, though her heart soared at the praise. "I can push any of these further if you think we need another round of refinement." Clarence took off his glasses, cleaning them with a small cloth, then slid them back on. "From where I stand, these are absolutely presentable. We'll polish the files and maybe create a quick brand sheet showing them in context, like mock-ups on business cards or a storefront window. Then we pitch to Bloom & Grow, see which direction resonates with them." "So that's a thumbs up?" Jessica asked, mouth curving into a hopeful smile. Naomi offered a playful wink. "A very enthusiastic thumbs up, yes, great job. We'll schedule the client meeting, hopefully next week, and let them choose which direction they prefer. In the meantime, I'll loop you in on the signage concepts." Jessica breathed a silent sigh of relief. This was the validation she needed. Her designs were meeting professional standards, and she wasn't just riding on Adam Carter's influence. Clarence stood, gathering his notes. "Keen & Beck often brings on freelancers for extended stints if they mesh well with our team. So far, I'd say you mesh just fine. Keep up the good work." With that, The meeting concluded. Jessica left the room practically on clouds. She felt alive with creative energy and the renewed confidence that she had genuine talent. As she returned to her desk, a quiet buzz from her phone indicated a new message. Callie, Adam wants to know if you can come by the building this evening. He'd like a quick update in person, maybe around 6 p.m.? Let me know if that works. Jessica's chest tightened. A personal meeting with Adam? She hadn't seen him in person since that brief conversation in his penthouse. Perhaps he wanted to gauge her progress on a deeper level. Could it be a simple check-in, or was there something more pressing? She typed back, "Sure, that should be fine. I'll head over once I wrap up here." The rest of the day flew by. Jessica finalized a quick brand sheet mock-up, using one of her favorite logo variations superimposed on a hypothetical storefront window. She even found time to help a junior designer troubleshoot a misbehaving font file. The Keenan Beck environment, with its casual camaraderie, felt like a place she could thrive long-term, if only they had a permanent spot for her. By late afternoon, Naomi stopped by and noticed the storefront mock-up. "Hey, that's brilliant. The client meeting will go so smoothly with a visual like this. You're earning your keep here, Jessica." Jessica laughed softly. "I'm just happy to be designing again. Thank you for trusting me with this." As 5:30 p.m. approached, she decided to pack up. "I have an errand," she explained, "but I'll be back tomorrow morning to keep fine-tuning everything." Naomi waved goodbye, already engrossed in her next project. Jessica pulled on her jacket, bracing herself for another bus ride across town. The sun was starting to set by the time she reached Adam Carter's upscale building. She'd texted Callie along the way, who replied with directions to the same private office suite on the second floor where Jessica had met her initially. The building's lobby was quieter at this hour, the main wave of corporate employees having already left. A discreet guard recognized her and directed her down the corridor. Inside, the space felt subdued, lights turned low. Jessica found a reception desk staffed by a single person, who indicated that Adam Carter was waiting in a side conference room. Heart thumping, she thanked him and walked toward the frosted glass doors. She half expected to see Callie, but Adam was alone, standing at the window with his back to the door. He wore a tailored shirt rolled at the sleeves, hands resting in his pockets. The city lights glittered beyond the glass, mirroring the subdued glow of the recessed lighting overhead. Jessica cleared her throat softly. "Mr. Carter?" He turned, that controlled, unreadable expression in place. "Jessica, come in." She stepped inside, letting the door close behind her with a gentle click. The room had a large round table, a few chairs, and a sleek monitor on one wall. No clutter, just the sterile neatness she'd come to associate with Adam's style. His gaze swept over her as if noting that she looked more confident than before. Or was she imagining it? He gestured for her to take a seat, and he sat across from her. "I hear Keenan Beck is pleased with your work," he said without preamble. "Callie forwarded me an internal note from Clarence praising your designs." Jessica's nerves eased slightly. "Yes, they liked the concepts. We're moving forward with a client pitch next week. If that goes well, I might be able to continue freelancing with them." Adam nodded, fingertip tapping the table. "That's good progress. Have you considered next steps beyond Keenan Beck's project in case it doesn't turn into a long-term arrangement?" She inhaled quietly. "I've glanced at other openings, but honestly, I'm hoping Keenan Beck keeps me on. The environment fits me well, and the work is fulfilling. Of course, I'm ready to pivot if it doesn't pan out." A flicker of something, approval maybe, crossed his features. "Practical. Good." He leaned forward slightly. "I also wanted to ensure your living situation is stable. No issues with the apartment? Have you settled in?" Her heart warmed at the concern, even if it sounded purely procedural. "I'm managing fine. It's modest, but it's mine, and I'm grateful. I appreciate the help you gave me to secure it." He acknowledged the thanks with a slight tilt of his head. "The money used for your deposit and initial expenses is all accounted for in that envelope I gave you, yes? Have you checked it thoroughly?" Jessica felt a prick of embarrassment but answered calmly, "Yes, I've kept track of the amounts. Once I start getting paid regularly, I'll figure out a repayment schedule. That's important to me." Adam's gaze held hers. "You don't have to rush it. Focus on securing stability first. I simply dislike disorganization, so I wanted to confirm the arrangement is clear." She nodded. "It is. Thank you." A brief quiet fell between them. Jessica shifted in her chair, remembering how she'd first met him. In his sports car, sobbing, desperate. The memory felt surreal now, given the composure and steadiness she carried herself with in this moment. She suspected Adam was recalling the same. An odd tension of gratitude and distance lay between them. "Anything else you need?" Adam asked, that crispness returning to his voice. "Additional software? References? A better laptop?" She offered a gentle smile. "Thank you, but I'm set right now. Keenan Beck has given me everything I need. Honestly, I just want to keep working hard there. If I succeed, that'll be the best way to repay what you've done for me." Adam studied her intently, then he settled back in his seat. "All right, my schedule is tight the next few weeks, so I won't be checking in daily. But Callie will stay in the loop. Once you finalize the Bloom and Grow project, let me know how the client responds." Jessica nodded, chest fluttering with a strange mixture of relief and disappointment that their interactions would remain so formal. But she understood. He wasn't her friend, nor her boss. He was an unexpected benefactor whose generosity came with high standards and limited patience. She stood, realizing the meeting was likely over. "I will. Thank you for seeing me and for everything else." He rose to his feet as well, eyes flickering toward the window. The late city lights played across his features, highlighting the refined angles of his face. "You've made decent use of this opportunity," he said almost quietly. "Keep it up, Jessica." Her pulse quickened at the faint note of warmth beneath his impassive words. "Yes, Mr. Adam, I will." She turned, stepping toward the door with steady steps. Behind her, Adam's posture remained poised, arms now crossed as he looked out at the skyline. Jessica paused briefly, about to say something more, like how his help had genuinely turned her life around, but no words came. The moment hung in the air. Ultimately, she decided to leave it unspoken. She let the door close softly behind her, the hallway's subdued lighting guiding her back toward the elevator. Once inside, she released the breath she'd been holding. The conversation had been brief, businesslike, yet something about it left her unsettled. She recognized Adam's concern, but also the deep barrier he maintained. As she left the building, the crisp air helped clear her thoughts. A stray memory of that stormy night flickered, her tears dripping onto the leather seats of Adam's car, the shock in his eyes as he witnessed her despair. Now those tears had dried, replaced by purposeful ambition. She no longer needed pity. She needed only to prove to Adam and to herself that she had the willpower to stand on her own. That night in her studio, she made a simple dinner and sat at her small table, updating her personal spreadsheet of expenses. She logged the bus fare, groceries, and any other minor items. A measure of pride swelled at her diligence. She was still living on meager means, but it felt sustainable. She sent Callie a quick message summarizing her meeting with Adam, then turned in early, determined to show up at Keenan Beck, fresh for another day of design work. As she drifted to sleep, her mind clung to Adam's parting words. "You've made decent use of this opportunity." Not exactly glowing praise, but it carried more weight than she'd imagined. It told her she was on the right track. Tomorrow would be another day to prove it, to show again and again that she could turn desperation into success, one small achievement at a time. O1 Pro. Você disse, yes, o ChatGPT disse, solicitação de O1 Pro Mod. Terminou de refletir 9:10. The following week brought a swirl of activity for Jessica. With Bloom and Grow's client pitch looming, she and Naomi refined every detail of the presentation. The entire team at Keenan Beck was supportive, offering small pieces of advice whenever she asked. Each day, Jessica added subtle improvements: a sharper tagline, a more cohesive brand palette, even mock-ups of how the new logo could appear on reusable tote bags or social media ads. By the eve of the pitch, her designs practically sang with clarity and personality. She couldn't help feeling occasional pangs of self-doubt, wondering if the client would really get her modern spin on such a homey business. But Naomi's ongoing feedback reminded her that good design should balance the brand's identity with a forward-thinking vision. And so, that was the story Jessica prepared to tell. Finally, the morning of the pitch arrived. Jessica woke early, tension thrumming in her veins. She pressed her clothes, checked her bus schedule 3 times, and carefully copied the final presentation onto both the Keen & Beck shared drive and a backup USB. No detail was too small to double-check. She remembered Adam's words about making decent use of this opportunity. She wanted to surpass mere decency. At the agency, a small wave of anxiety washed over her as she stepped off the elevator. Naomi greeted her with a grin and a paper cup of coffee. "Big day," she said, pressing the cup into Jessica's hand. "I've got your back." In a side conference room, they set up a laptop connected to a large screen where Bloom & Grow's owners, Mr. Henderson and Ms. Davis, would see the new concepts. The duo arrived on time, carrying an air of curiosity and slight apprehension that Jessica recognized from all her past design presentations. Clients often worried about losing the essence of what made their brand special. After the usual polite introductions, Naomi opened the meeting by praising how Bloom & Grow had carved a niche in the local community for quality plants and friendly service. She then invited Jessica to take the reins. Swallowing her nerves, Jessica launched the slideshow. The screen lit up with the old Bloom & Grow logo, followed by the new concepts. "We wanted to keep your warm, neighborly feel," Jessica explained, gesturing to the simplified watering can icon. "But we're bringing it into a modern aesthetic that's easier to reproduce across signage and social media." As she spoke, she glanced at Mr. Henderson, who nodded thoughtfully, and Ms. Davis, who leaned in with a spark of excitement in her eyes. Jessica felt her confidence rise. Each slide showcased different applications: store signage, business cards, even a redesigned plant label that carried the fresh, cohesive brand look. They paused at a slide featuring tote bags. Ms. Davis's eyes lit up. "Oh, we've been thinking of selling branded merchandise for a while," she murmured. "It'd be a cute way for our loyal customers to show support." Jessica seized the moment. "Exactly. Imagine people strolling through the farmer's market with a Bloom & Grow tote that stands out. It spreads awareness without feeling pushy." Mr. Henderson exchanged a pleased glance with Ms. Davis. "I like that," he said. "It's subtle marketing but aligned with our eco-friendly image." Naomi let Jessica field most of the questions, stepping in only to clarify budget or timeline constraints. The tone in the room felt collaborative rather than tense. By the end of the presentation, Ms. Davis was smiling broadly. "This truly captures the spirit of our shop," she enthused. "I've always feared a rebrand would be too corporate, but this feels like us, just more polished." Mr. Henderson was slightly more reserved, flipping through physical printouts of the logo variations. "I'm leaning toward that second color palette, the one with the softer greens, but I'd like to confirm how it looks in different lighting." "Not a problem," Naomi responded. "We can produce test prints on signage material so you can see it in the actual shop environment. That's part of our standard brand rollout process." He nodded, satisfied. "Then I think we're good to move forward. Let's finalize this concept, do the test prints, and discuss the next phase, like updating our website." Jessica's heart soared. This was a clear yes. They'd chosen one of her designs and they were ready to sign on for more. She resisted the urge to break into a beaming grin, instead managing a polite, "Thank you. We appreciate your trust and look forward to refining everything." As they wrapped up, Ms. Davis shook Jessica's hand with genuine warmth. "I can't wait to see the final files. Thank you for giving our shop a new lease on life." Once the clients left, Naomi turned to Jessica with a triumphant grin. "That, my friend, is a slam dunk." Jessica's shoulders relaxed. "I'm so relieved." They seemed genuinely happy. "They were," Naomi confirmed, gathering her notes. "And you handled yourself like a pro. If we can get this brand update done smoothly, I'm pretty sure Keen & Beck will want to keep you around for more freelance work." The mention of freelance made Jessica pause. Would there be a chance for a permanent position? She felt a spark of hope, but also caution. Either way, she'd proven her capability, and that was a huge step forward. "Thanks, Naomi," she said sincerely. "I couldn't have done it without your guidance." Naomi smiled, patting Jessica's shoulder. "You earned it. Now, let's celebrate with some coffee and pastries in the break area, yeah?" They indulged in a small coffee break, surrounded by a few curious colleagues who asked how the pitch went. Jessica found herself answering confidently, no longer the timid newcomer. She was part of the team, at least for now. Later that day, in a quieter moment at her desk, Jessica remembered Adam's request to be informed about the Bloom and Grow outcome. She typed up a concise email. Subject: Bloom and Grow pitch. Success. "Hi, Adam. Just wanted to let you know the client loved the concepts. We'll finalize the new logo and proceed with store signage. They've given Keen & Beck the green light for more work in the future, so it's a great outcome. Thank you again for connecting me with this opportunity. I'm hopeful it'll lead to further projects. Best, Jessica." She sent the message, wondering if she'd get another terse "understood" or "good job." His style of communication was often so minimal that it sometimes felt borderline dismissive, but she'd come to see it as a quirk of his no-nonsense personality. Sure enough, less than an hour later, she received a reply. From AC, "Good news, keep up the momentum. Adam." Her lips twitched into a small smile. Beneath the cool veneer, she sensed he might be pleased. She decided to interpret "keep up the momentum" as a heartfelt pat on the back, in Adam Carter terms. The days that followed brought Jessica deeper into Keen & Beck's culture. She helped prepare final brand guidelines for Bloom and Grow, coordinated with a printer for the signage test, and even brainstormed social media templates for the client's future marketing. Each time, Naomi or Clarence would offer quick input, but Jessica was clearly driving the project now. Her workload grew, and with it, her confidence. She arrived each morning with a renewed sense of purpose. Eager to pay her own way, she also started scoping out potential side commissions, just small design gigs on local forums that might give her extra cash to pay back Adam's loan faster. At lunch breaks, she sat with colleagues who chatted about everything from music festivals to design conferences. She was even invited to an after-work happy hour, which she politely declined the first time. Money was still tight, and she wanted to stay frugal. But the gesture made her feel welcome. One afternoon, just when she was finishing an updated color proof for Bloom and Grow, Naomi leaned against the partition near Jessica's desk. "Hey, any interest in tagging along to a client meeting for a different project? We're working with a digital startup, and I think you'd be a great fit for the design portion. Could be your next assignment if all goes well." Jessica blinked. "Really? That's... Sure. I'd love to learn more." Naomi shrugged casually, though her eyes shone with a hint of excitement. "Yeah, we might need some fresh perspective. Clarence and I were talking. Since you've proven yourself with Bloom and Grow, we'd like to see how you handle a more tech-focused brand. If you're up for it, come sit in on the briefing tomorrow morning." Thrill prickled down Jessica's spine, another chance to broaden her skill set, and maybe lock in more consistent work at Keen & Beck. She nodded eagerly. "Count me in." That evening, back in her cozy studio, Jessica heated up leftover soup and reflected on how drastically her life had changed in just a few weeks. Not long ago, she'd had no stability, sleeping wherever she could. Now she was immersed in creative projects, forging connections in a respected agency, and living in a safe apartment, albeit a modest one. After dinner, She carefully updated her expense spreadsheet, noticing that she could soon start repaying Adam a small portion each month if her freelance checks arrived promptly. The sense of empowerment was real. She typed a text to Callie. "Bloom and Grow is happy, possibly picking up a second project soon. Feeling grateful. Give Adam my thanks if you chat with him." Callie responded with celebratory emojis and a simple note. "He'll be pleased to hear. Keep rocking it." Smiling, Jessica set the phone aside. She couldn't deny a lingering curiosity about Adam, his motivations, his personal life. He remained a distant figure, guarded by his schedule and that mask of polite stoicism. Yet he was also the one who'd let her into his world, if only briefly, when she needed help the most. Shaking off the musings, she reminded herself that she owed him results, not personal entanglements. The best way to honor his trust was to succeed in her own right. She reviewed the pitch slides for tomorrow's new briefing, letting the hum of city traffic lull her into a calm focus. Her hands traced imaginary design ideas on the air, thinking about color palettes for a tech brand. A month ago, she had doubted she'd ever design again, feeling worthless after so many rejections. Now, she was stepping from one satisfying project to another. Was it all because she'd bumped into Adam Carter's life at just the right moment? Fate or coincidence, the difference hardly mattered. She had seized the door he'd opened for her, and she intended to keep walking forward on her own 2 feet. By the time sleep called her name, a gentle satisfaction settled in. She was shaping her destiny, no longer at the mercy of sheer desperation. Tomorrow's meeting promised even more opportunities, and so far each success only fueled her resolve to repay Adam's trust and carve out a lasting place in this world of design she so dearly loved. O1 Pro. Você disse yes. O ChatGPT disse solicitação de O1 Pro Mode. Terminou de refletir 10:10. Morning light streamed through the tall windows of Keen & Beck's main conference room, where Jessica sat with a fresh notepad, laptop at the ready. This was the kickoff meeting for a new client, a digital startup specializing in an app to streamline local event planning. Naomi had invited Jessica specifically for design input, which both thrilled and slightly intimidated her. Across the table sat the startup's lead developer, explaining the user experience challenges. He spoke about color-coded schedules, intuitive icons, and an overall brand identity that would differentiate them in a crowded app market. Jessica jotted notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions about the client's vision. Naomi then turned to Jessica with a nod. "So, Jessica here will be taking the lead on the initial UI color palettes and iconography concepts, if everyone's okay with that. She just wrapped a successful campaign for another client, so we're looking forward to her perspective." Jessica met the developer's gaze, smiling confidently. "I'll do a deep dive into your app's core features, then propose a few style boards," she said. "We can refine from there, ensuring it resonates with your target user base." The meeting ended with friendly handshakes, the new client leaving behind a sense of excited momentum. Naomi bumped Jessica's shoulder on the way out. "You're on fire. Bloom and Grow was just the start. I can't wait to see what you do with a tech brand." Jessica gave a grateful laugh, nerves dancing under her skin. She remembered a time not so long ago when "on fire" would have referred to her life going up in flames rather than succeeding. But here she was, being handed key responsibilities. The feeling was indescribable. Later that afternoon, Jessica finished up some final touches for Bloom and Grow's signage. They'd requested a slight tweak to the typography, so she swiftly made the changes and sent them to the printer. The client's gratitude practically shone through their email. She leaned back in her chair, savoring the satisfaction of a job well done. A quiet chime from her phone drew her attention. She glanced at the screen, an email from Adam Carter. Subject: Next steps. Jessica, congratulations on finalizing the Bloom and Grow deliverables. I've been informed they're quite satisfied. I'd like to meet briefly to discuss your progress and repayment plans whenever you have time. Let me know your availability this week. Regards, Adam Carter. Her chest tightened. She'd almost forgotten that entire side of things, the financial arrangement that had enabled her apartment and stable footing. With her next freelance payment due soon, she was eager to start paying him back. Yet the mention of repayment plans flicked a small thread of anxiety in her mind. She typed a polite response. "Hi, Adam, thank you for the note. I'm happy to meet whenever is convenient. My schedule is fairly open after 4 p.m. on Thursday or Friday. Let me know what works best. Thanks, Jessica." Once she hit send, her mind drifted to the last time she'd seen Adam in person. He'd been distant yet quietly encouraging, telling her to keep up the momentum. And she had. She was even more established at Keene & Beck now than she could have dreamed. Though the arrangement with Adam was purely business, with a dash of unexpected compassion, part of her felt odd discussing repayment, as if it might undermine the goodwill that started everything. Still, she knew it had to be done. She was determined to stand on her own feet, free of debts that could weigh her down. By Thursday afternoon, Adam's assistant, Callie, confirmed a meeting time for that very evening. "He's busy until 6, Callie texted, "so maybe come by the penthouse office at 6:15. I can meet you in the lobby." Jessica's heart fluttered. Another trip to that luxurious building. Another face-to-face with the man who'd upended her fate. She left Keene & Beck early, wanting to look presentable. She swung by her apartment to change into a neatly pressed blouse and comb her hair, ensuring she presented herself as the professional she now believed herself to be. At exactly 6:15, she arrived at the tower's lobby. Callie was waiting near the reception desk, scanning emails on her phone. She greeted Jessica with a friendly smile. "Hey, Adam just wrapped a call. Let's head upstairs." The elevator ride was smooth, the hum of its mechanics barely audible. Jessica clutched her work bag where she'd stowed a folder detailing her monthly budget and how she planned to repay Adam. She wanted to show him she wasn't a flake, that she was serious about settling her debts. Callie led her to a small lounge area adjacent to Adam's penthouse office. Jessica took a seat on a stylish but minimalist sofa, feeling a pang of déjà vu. Soon, Callie returned from the office door, motioning Jessica to enter. Inside, Adam stood behind a sleek desk, scanning a digital report on a tablet. He wore a crisp shirt, no tie, sleeves rolled to the elbows, his typical after-hours look. He glanced up, face set in that neutral, measured expression. "Jessica," he said, a nod in greeting. "Good to see you. Have a seat." She settled into a chair opposite the desk, smoothing her blouse. "Thank you for meeting me." He set the tablet aside. "I appreciate you coming in. From what I hear, Keene & Beck has given you a second project, correct?" She nodded, a pleased flush warming her cheeks. "Yes, a tech startup. Early stages, but it's going well. They seem to like my approach. Meanwhile, Bloom & Grow is wrapping up smoothly." Adam's gaze flickered, almost imperceptibly, with approval. "Excellent." He paused a moment, then tapped the desk gently. "I won't waste time. You emailed about wanting to begin partial repayment?" "Yes," she said, opening her folder. "My first paycheck from Keene & Beck will arrive in 2 weeks. It's not huge, but I can allocate a portion. Then with each subsequent payment, I can give more. I prepared a rough breakdown." She slid a paper across the desk. A simple chart showing her monthly living expenses, projected freelance income, and a proposed repayment schedule. Adam scanned it, brow furrowing in concentration. "It's organized," he commented, "though I notice you're cutting it close with savings. Are you sure you'll have enough cushion in case of emergencies?" His concern startled her. She cleared her throat. "I'm used to living simply. But yes, if Keene & Beck continues assigning me projects, I should manage fine. Any surplus, I'll put into savings." He nodded once. "Fair enough. I don't want you to bankrupt yourself to pay me back. I just want clarity. This looks workable." He circled a date on her chart. "So you'd be fully paid off in about 6 months, provided everything stays on track?" Jessica exhaled with relief. Yes, that's the plan. A strange silence followed, punctuated by the distant hum of the city outside the tall windows. Adam leaned back in his chair, arms loosely folded. You've transformed your life quite efficiently since we first met. She offered a soft smile. I couldn't have done it without your support, truly. But I also hope you see that I'm not just a charity case. I want to stand on my own merit. Adam's eyes flicked to hers, and for a moment she sensed a trace of empathy slip through his cool demeanor. I do see that, he said quietly. You've proven you have the skill and drive to make use of an opportunity. That's all I ask. Heat rose to her cheeks at the rare hint of praise. Thank you, she managed. He cleared his throat, returning to the business at hand. We'll finalize the details with Callie. She'll keep track of your payments. I'm satisfied with this arrangement. No interest, just your schedule. Don't feel forced to accelerate it if your finances tighten. Nodding, she relaxed in her seat. Understood. Thank you for the flexibility. He gave a crisp nod, as if concluding a contract. For a moment, Jessica wondered if she should simply stand and leave. Yet something in her yearned to express her gratitude in a more personal way, beyond mere numbers. She swallowed, choosing her words carefully. Adam, I know you prefer to keep things businesslike, but I want you to know how truly grateful I am. A few weeks ago, I was lost. You didn't have to help, but you did. And, well, my entire life has changed. He studied her, face composed but eyes hinting at something deeper. I've told you, Jessica, I hate half measures. Helping half-heartedly accomplishes nothing. Either I do it thoroughly or not at all. You needed a hand. I had the means. That's all. She smiled at the pragmatic summary. Even so, it was more generosity than I'd ever received. I won't forget it. A flicker of discomfort touched his features. Perhaps he wasn't used to emotional thanks. He rubbed his wrist thoughtfully. If anything, you've already shown that given the right opportunity, you can succeed. That's enough acknowledgement. She rose, sensing the conversation was done. Well, I'll let you get back to your evening. Thank you again for your time. He stood as well, walking her to the door. The corridor light cast warm shadows across the polished floor. Before she stepped out, she paused, glancing back. It struck her how different this penthouse seemed now. Once it had loomed with the power to intimidate her. Now she felt oddly at ease, as if she belonged in the world of possibilities Adam had opened. She offered a small wave. Good night. He returned a nod. Good night, Jessica. Keep me posted on the new project. The office door closed gently, and she moved past Callie's desk where the assistant gave her a knowing smile. Jessica responded with a quiet grin, then stepped into the elevator. She breathed out slowly, emotions swirling. Relief at the payment plan's acceptance, gratitude for Adam's steadfast support, and beneath it all, a subtle determination to push further, to make her success permanent. Outside, the night air was cool. Jessica texted Naomi about some color palettes for the new app design, her mind already returning to the swirl of creative solutions. The bus ride home felt shorter than usual, likely because her thoughts churned with new ideas and a renewed sense of purpose. At her studio, the simple decor welcomed her like a faithful friend. She kicked off her shoes and reached for a notepad, scribbling fresh sketches for the tech startup's icon concepts. With Bloom and Grow nearly done, she was hungry for the next challenge. Designing for an app would be a leap from the cozy, home-style brand she'd just completed. Exactly the kind of growth she craved. As she sketched, a passing reflection of Adam Carter's face in her mind made her pause. So much had changed since the night she crumpled in tears in his car. Now, those tears were behind her, replaced by steady resolve. Adam had extended a hand, but she was the one who'd chosen to grasp it firmly and climb. No matter what happened next, whether she stayed at Keane and Beck long-term or moved on to bigger design roles, Jessica knew she had more power over her fate than she'd once realized. She thought of Adam's line, "Either I do it thoroughly, or not at all." That principle had ignited something in her. Why not approach her own career the same way? Setting her pencil aside, she took a moment to absorb the silence. For once, the quiet in her life wasn't about loneliness or loss. It was the soft hush of possibility. She let a smile surface, grateful for every step that had brought her here, the heartbreak, the helplessness, the unexpected compassion, and the fierce determination she found within herself. Tomorrow, she'd be back in Keen and Beck's creative buzz, refining an app's interface, sharing jokes with her colleagues, and striving to become a designer worthy of a permanent spot. Her debt to Adam would diminish month by month until she was free of it entirely. And perhaps someday she'd stand face to face with him again, not as a debtor or a rescued stray, but as an equal, someone who had risen to every challenge he'd set. She flicked off the main light, letting the small desk lamp cast a warm glow across the notepad. Tomorrow's designs awaited, the future bright with new colors and fresh shapes. Jessica could almost taste the promise of success. Settling in for the night, she closed her eyes, a faint, confident grin tugging at her lips. The seeds of her new life had been planted, nurtured by unexpected kindness and her own unstoppable willpower. Now, it was time to watch them grow. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen.